Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It has been a little while since I've uploaded a video. I uploaded my last video, which was my 36-week pregnancy update, and I uploaded that a month ago. A month ago, I had this sweet little boy. Say hi, guys. Say hi, guys. Say, my name is Griffin Lee, and I am the cutest little thing on the face of the planet. Huh. Tell him. You gonna tell him? No? And say, Mom, let me sleep. So I uploaded my last video on December 5th, which was the day he was born. I had a scheduled C-section. And if you're new to my channel and wondering why I had a scheduled C-section, I had what was called Placenta Previa that they found out in my 20-week anatomy scan. If you don't know what Placenta Previa is, it basically means that my placenta was covering my cervix and blocking his exit. Now, for a lot of people, it's very common in early pregnancy for the placenta to be down low, and then as the baby gets bigger and grows, it moves up and the uterus moves up and the placenta moves and it doesn't become a problem. At my 33-week repeat ultrasound, my placenta was still in the exact same position. So the decision was made that I would have a C-section at 36 weeks and 6 days pregnant, just because it's very dangerous for me to try and dilate while having this condition. So they wanted me to have a C-section pretty early and not wait closer to like 39 or 40 weeks like I really would have wanted. Going into my pregnancy, I did not want a C-section, but obviously I just wanted my baby here, happy and healthy. So I'm going to backtrack just a little bit for you guys. If you weren't following our daily vlog channel at the time, I did vlog I think almost every day up until I was born for like a week, maybe two, I'm not sure. The Thursday or Friday before my C-section, I met with the surgeon that would be doing my C-section, and she was really great. I felt really comfortable with her. She answered a lot of my questions and kind of just made me feel at ease with the whole thing. And then the day before my C-section, I met with my anesthesiologist and some nurses to sign some consents and stuff. None of the people I actually met with on the Monday before did I actually see. Like, they weren't the ones in my operating room and stuff, but they like told me everything that would happen and how it would happen, and they gave me kind of like what to expect, I needed to do before, like not to eat or drink after midnight kind of thing, those kinds of stuff. At that appointment, they told me that I could go ahead and call Monday night and find out what time to come in on Tuesday for my C-section. So Monday night at 9 p.m. I called my hospital and they said I can go ahead and arrive about 6:30, and I said okay. We got pretty much no sleep Monday night at all, and woke up Tuesday morning, early Tuesday morning, and we all headed to the hospital. It was Colton, me, my grandmother, and my dad and Audrey, because my thought process was I'm having a C-section, and in like 5 hours total time, everyone will be able to hold my baby, and it's just gonna be like a magical day. Well, that's not quite exactly how it happened, but I'm really glad that they were actually there. So we left them in the waiting room, and we headed back, and they got me like all hooked up with my two nurses. I had two nurses that would be my nurses from like from when I arrived until I was in the mother baby unit. So as long as it took to get me into the OR, out of the OR, and through recovery, these would be my two nurses. So they were amazing. Those nurses were so friendly, so helpful. They let me hold their hand when they were putting my spinal block and everything. They were just really, really sweet. So we just went back to the back of the room, and they got me my belly all hooked up to the monitors. They were monitoring his heartbeat. They were monitoring my contractions. They got my IVs started. I had to have 2 IVs because of the risk of my bleeding. I had to have 2 IVs, which I wasn't thrilled about, and for some reason it was really hard for them to get IVs on me this time, which has never been a problem for me in my life, but for some reason this time it was a little bit more tricky. I don't know. The only thing I remember feeling like that last little bit was cold. I felt really, really cold, but I could still feel this guy moving, huh? Yeah, I could still feel him moving, and I was just like sitting there and just enjoying feeling him move, and like his last little movements and stuff, and feeling my belly being hard and big, and I kind of miss it just a little bit. I'm super happy he's here, but I do miss it just a little bit. I think it was right before 8 o'clock when they took me into the OR, and I had to go into the OR by myself. Colton had to wait in the hallway, which made me really nervous and anxious, but again, my nurses were great, and they said that they would bring him right back in as soon as they got my spinal block in and stuff. So I went in and sat on the edge of the bed, and I hunched over. You have to like hunch over like this, and I was insanely anxious for the spinal block. That was probably what I was absolutely most anxious for. I was afraid he would miss. I was afraid it wouldn't work. I was afraid, I don't know, I was afraid I'd have to be put under and I would miss his birth, and I had all these irrational fears, basically any fear that like the bad stories that could happen. I had that fear in my head. But my anesthesiologist was extremely confident. He was like, this is gonna be a piece of cake, you're gonna do great, it's gonna be awesome. And he like talked me through the whole thing, and at first I didn't think I wanted him to talk me through the whole thing. I was like, no, you just do you and tell me when it's done. But I'm actually really glad that he did talk me through it. Like, he did say, okay, I'm gonna put this on your back now, this is to clean it or whatever, and like those kinds of things. That actually really did end up helping me. From the time he started to like getting it in, I don't think it was more than a couple minutes maybe. I'm really not the best judge of time for this whole event. I know that we went into the OR at 8, and it felt like forever for Colton to get in there. As soon as they gave me the spinal block, they laid me down, and I thought, okay, Colton will be in any minute. And it felt like a little bit longer for him to come in. They put up the drape, and people started working like really quickly around me. That part kind of freaked me out, because I was like, they just went from like 0 to 100. What happened? Did something go wrong? But the anesthesiologist was like, nope, it's perfect, you're doing great. It was the best one, like it couldn't have gone better. And I was like, okay. And they like laid me down. As soon as he went in, he said, okay, it's done. Him and then my 2 nurses, and I think there might have been one other person, like laid me down flat onto the bed. Remember, like I could still feel things. Like I could still feel my feet, I could still like wiggle my toes, and I kept asking the anesthesiologist, is this normal, is this normal, is this normal, because I was terrified that it wasn't gonna work and that I was gonna feel when they started cutting me and I would have to be put out or something. Like I was probably the most annoying patient ever to this anesthesiologist, because I was just like, is it working, is it working, is it working? And he was like, it's okay, it's okay, it's all right, you're fine. Right before Colton came in, all of the doctors, everyone in the room like had to like have a roll call, basically was what it seemed like. Everyone had to say who their name and like what department they were with. There were a lot of people in the room that I like could hear, but I couldn't see a lot of them. I really only saw my anesthesiologist and Colton, and then one of my nurses through pretty much the entire surgery. I did see my doctor for a minute. My doctor, and there were 2 doctors. I did see both of them for a minute, but pretty much those are the only people I saw. I know there were other people in the room. There was the NICU team in the room. There was the cord blood banking team in the room. There were a couple other people in the room too, but I have no idea why they were there or what they were doing there or anything. They did not tell me when they got started. I thought they would say, okay, we're gonna cut you now or anything, and I'm kind of glad they didn't, because that probably would have given me a little bit of anxiety. But once they did that, they let Colton come in, and he came up by my head, held my hand, and the anesthesiologist gave him like one of those suction straw things like you have at the dentist, except it was a little bit bigger. And he was like, here, this is your most important job. If she throws up, put this in her mouth. And I was like, throw up? I'm not gonna throw up. I don't want to throw up. Thankfully he did give Colton that, because I did start throwing up just a few minutes later. I don't know what it was at this point that made me sick. I honestly think it was the medication, because I didn't really feel sick. It all of a sudden like just came out. So that part was not fun, like laying on your back, not feeling like you can move. I couldn't feel myself throwing up. It was just coming up. That was really, really freaky for me. I did not like it at all. That only happened twice before he was born, and then he was born at 8:42 in the morning. He was born 42 minutes after I went into the OR. I don't know what time they actually started the C-section. So he was born at 8:42 in the morning. He weighed 6 pounds, 5 ounces, and was 18.5 inches long. He was just a little guy, huh? Just a little guy. and he was just so perfect. He was so cute and so sweet, and I just wanted to hold him. But I couldn't yet because I was having a C-section. So Colton got to go around the table and cut his umbilical cord and hold him and all those things. And the nurses were amazing. They took a bunch of pictures for us. If you saw the birth vlog that's up on our other channel, I will link it down below and up in the cards for you. Some of those pictures are in there. We didn't get to film the birth process because it wasn't a surgery, so that part really stunk. A couple minutes later, Colton got to bring him over to me, and they put him like up by my face and let me kiss him and like snuggle him a little bit. That was amazing. And yeah, so at that point we knew that he was having a little bit of trouble getting the fluid out of his lungs, which is very common, I guess, for babies that are born via C-section. When you have a vaginal birth, the way it was explained to me is when you have a vaginal birth, the baby is kind of squeezed through the birth canal, and that helps them get rid of the fluid in their lungs. Well, because he wasn't squeezed through the birth canal, he was having a little bit more trouble getting rid of the fluid in his lungs. A lot of people on my Instagram thought that meant that his lungs weren't developed. That was not the case. His lungs were developed. They were just a little wet and sticky is how the doctors explained it to me. Colton and Griffin got to stay in the OR, I think, for like 20 to 25 minutes, I would say. I'm not entirely sure on time. Again, I was not the best judge of time at this point. And then they went back to my recovery room. And that was the plan all along, was that once he was born, Colton would get to hold him, I would get to see him and everything, and then they would go back to the room and wait for me to be finished. I do remember my doctor telling me two things at this point. One was that the way she sewed up my uterus would make it so that if I were to have another child and my placenta was not in the way, that I still would be able to try for a vaginal birth. I'm not sure what exactly that meant, but she made it sound like a really good thing, the way my uterus was sewn up and everything, so I was like, okay, cool. And then she told me that I lost quite a bit of blood during the surgery. She said it wasn't dangerously low, like I don't need the transfusion right away, but we definitely need to keep an eye on my blood loss and how I'm feeling, make sure I'm not lightheaded, those kinds of things. And I was like, okay. I wasn't feeling really bad. I did get sick 2 more times while they were finishing up. The anesthesiologist had to put that straw thing back in my mouth. But other than that, the rest of the surgery went pretty well. I did feel pretty cold during the surgery. They had this like white blanket thing that they were able to put over me and then like pushed warm air through it to keep me warm. That was really, really great. I enjoyed that a lot. Then I went back to my recovery room, and that's where things started getting a little bit crazy. And Colton was just sitting there snuggling my sweet little boy, and I wanted to hold him so bad. I was able to hold him a little bit, put him on my chest, do a little bit of skin to skin, and the nurses started pressing on my stomach, which they said was totally normal and what like they normally do and everything. So I was like, okay. So I did get to hold him for a little bit, and then the NICU team or the NICU nurse or someone came in to do an assessment on him. I don't remember who exactly it was, but they took him over to like the little warmer thing, and they started doing an assessment on him. And at that point I started looking at my nurses' faces, and I could tell something wasn't really right. They were pushing on my stomach and looking at each other like, this isn't good. And so I was asking them what was going on and stuff, and they were telling me that I was losing a lot more blood than they like to see. And it wasn't slowing down. Like, I guess the first time you should lose a lot of blood, and the next time you should lose a little bit less, then a little bit less. And mine wasn't decreasing. So they were really concerned by that. And at that point, there was like a lot of things going on. I think one of the nurses went to go get the doctor. There was just a lot. And I remember the doctor from the NICU talking to me and saying, you're having a little bit of complications. He might need a little bit of help with what's called a CPAP machine. Keep his lungs open so he can regulate his breathing. So she recommended that they take him to the NICU. I said okay, but I sent Colton with him. The way they were making it sound was like he would just go to the NICU for a couple of hours and then be right back. That's not quite how it happened, but he did end up going to the NICU, and that was the last time I got to see him until way later that evening. So Colton went with him to the NICU, and I stayed obviously in my recovery room with just me and my 2 nurses. I started feeling a little bit lightheaded, and I don't know when the decision was made for me to have a blood transfusion. It was really soon after that, I feel like. Again, the timeline, I've got the timeline down, but I don't have like how much time happened in between everything. It was really kind of just a giant blur. Yeah, my blood transfusion started around 12:30, so it had been a couple of hours since he was born, but as soon as they started putting the blood into me, I started feeling a lot better. I started feeling less lightheaded. I was still really nauseous because I was really, really hungry. I felt like I was nauseous because I was hungry, and they would not give me anything to eat because I had the possibility of having to go back into the OR, because if they couldn't get my bleeding under control and everything, I wasn't allowed to eat. I was so hungry. But they gave me, when they started the blood transfusion, they gave me some medication. I have no idea what it is or what it's called, or if anyone even told me. They gave me some medication to help stop the bleeding, and it worked. After the surgery, in recovery, I also felt extremely itchy. I was like it was like I had rolled in poison oak or poison ivy or something. I looked like I felt like I had the dang chicken pox. I was so itchy. I don't know why. I think it had to do with the medication. They said it was normal, but I was like, can we just like, I wanted to scratch. I just wanted to like sit there and shake in the bed to like rub my back on the bed. It was really weird. I had never felt anything like it. Around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I started feeling the medication wear off, where I could start feeling my feet again. I could start feeling like I could wiggle my toes, and I could tell I could kind of wiggle my toes, but I like couldn't move my legs or anything yet. I felt really, really tired. Colton brought my grandmother in to see me and my dad in to see me as he took them to meet the baby in the NICU. I wasn't there as they all got to meet him, but Colton did try to get some footage of it for me, so I was really happy about that. I also didn't get to see Audrey meeting him for the first time. That I was really upset about, but I understood, you know, he couldn't come out of the NICU now, and I couldn't go in the NICU, and I get it, but it was really disappointing for me. After my dad and my grandmother came in my room individually, Colton brought them all in my room, in my recovery room, and we kind of all just hung out there and waited for the medications to start working and waited for my blood transfusion to finish. And then I think a little bit later, they all went and got lunch, and yeah, they all went and got lunch, and I was still starving because I couldn't eat anything. I was finally okay to eat about 3 o'clock, and it was like the most magical thing ever. I was able to have, I think graham crackers was the first thing I was able to eat, and let me tell you, I feel like I probably ate like 8 of them. They were like, go slow, go slow. I'm like, I am hungry. I spent most of my pregnancy being sick, and I could tell when I was sick because I was hungry, and I could tell when I was sick because I like didn't want to eat anything. I could tell the difference, and I was so hungry. And a little while later, I was finally moved to the mother-baby unit, and everyone was able to go with me, my dad, my grandmother, and Audrey, and obviously, and everything. Colton was going back and forth between me and the baby. He'd go spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes with the baby, and then come back and spend 20, 30 minutes with me, make sure that he like knew what was going on with both of us, and then he would come and give me updates, and he was texting me pictures and all of that through the whole process. There's just so much that happened that day that I don't even, my mind, like, there's stuff that I'm like, oh yeah, this happened, and oh yeah, this happened, and it's really crazy. When I was moved to the mother baby unit, I had a bunch of people come in my room. I had a bunch of people come in and out of my room after I was moved to the mother baby unit, just like the standard stuff. They brought me like, you know, pads and other stuff, and asked if I needed anything, told me when dinner would be, gave me the numbers to call and order my food, just a bunch of stuff. Like, they just gave me a ton of information. My doctor came in right around the same time, and they said I was okay to go see my baby as long as I could stand up from my bed and sit in the wheelchair and then be wheeled over there. Obviously, it was not to do any standing by myself. Normally, they did say at the very beginning that I would be up walking around that night, and I did get up that night, and I think I walked to the bathroom maybe to the into the hallway a little bit, I don't know, but they didn't want me walking too much because of the blood transfusion. They wanted me to just kind of relax. So then I went and saw him in the NICU, and I felt so bad. I felt like I caused him all this pain, and the day just did not go the way I had originally planned. I mean, it didn't go the way I planned because I didn't have a vaginal birth, and then I got so used to, okay, I'm gonna have to have a C-section. I came to terms with that, and then that day didn't go as I had hoped and planned, so it was a little bit stressful for me, but I'm really grateful to have my baby boy here, and I wouldn't change it for the entire world. He is perfect and so sweet, and while I wish he didn't have to go to the NICU and stay there for 8 days, I am really grateful that he is home with us, and yeah, he's such a sweet little boy, huh? He's such a sweet little boy. That was basically our entire day. My dad and my grandmother and Audrey left around 6 or 7, I don't quite remember, but it was pretty late. They left and went home. The other thing that happened that day was the lactation consultant brought me a breast pump and asked me to start if I wanted to breastfeed, and I said yes, and she said that they recommend I start pumping as soon as possible. One, they weren't sure when they would start feeding him, but that he would eventually start eating and he would get my breast milk. So that was pretty much the story of this guy's birth. Yeah, that's how he entered the world. Wasn't quite the way we planned, but it was his own special way, huh? I'm gonna do a hospital stay NICU story video. I'm gonna film tomorrow, I hope, because we were in the NICU for 8 days, or he was in the NICU for 8 days, and I had to stay I stayed in the hospital with him the whole time. So I have a bunch of notes and stories and like the timeline of how all that happened. So if you guys are interested in that, definitely let me know down below, but I'm probably planning on filming it tomorrow anyway. Just to have for my own like memories and everything. But I'll let you see his cuteness one more time. Oh, he's so cute. Guys, aren't I so cute? Aren't I the cutest thing ever? He was born with a ton of hair, so all that acid reflux I had was for something, at least. He was born with a lot of hair. He will be a month old tomorrow. Today is January 4th, and he was born on December 5th. I can't believe you're so big already, buddy. I can't believe it. I could just stare at him forever. Can you guys just stare at him forever? He loves being swaddled, absolutely loves it. The swaddle blankets from Copper Pearl are my favorite. This is one of them. We only have one, and I think I'm gonna order more because they're that amazing. So we really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we will see you guys in our next one. Say bye, buddy. Say bye, guys.